Hi, I'm Erik Linask, and I'm talking today with Camiant's Vice President of Business Development, Randy Fuller. Randy, thanks for joining me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Maybe get us started by telling me a little bit about Camiant.
Sure. So Camiant is a software company based out of Boston, got sales and service people spread throughout the globe. We make what's called policy management software for broadband operators, and essentially allows a broadband operator to tweak their service based on how much usage they've had, how much bandwidth they consume, the types of services they can do, things like that, either to allow the operator to offer promotions and things like that, or to be able to do some cost control types of things.
So those things are really coming into focus today with the increased mobile applications and just database data usage and across mobile networks. How is that impacting what you're doing?
So business has been very busy for the last few years. We've had a terrific year this past year in a couple of different areas. Actually most of the cable operators in the world use our technology for a variety of different things to make sure their voice over IP calls sound good, and various bandwidth promotions and things like that. In fact, we calculated at the beginning of this past year that we can reach 70% of the cable modems in North America with this kind of technology. The other place where we're seeing a lot of this is for mobile broadband operators, primarily in North America and Europe, actually Europe even more than North America. European mobile operators have embraced mobile broadband, whether it be smartphones like the iPhone and the Google Android, or the USB modems. There's a lot of places in Europe actually where the cost of mobile broadband is even lower than the DSL broadband cost. The downside of that is that the amount of bandwidth that's going on in these networks is exploding, and so operators are looking for ways to be able to have rules around how that bandwidth gets allocated and how much it costs.
Why not simply just charge more or charge more after a certain limit?
So there's a limit to how much people are willing to pay, and really there's a bit of a mismatch between the amount of bandwidth that's consumed for certain things and the value that people will prescribe to them. A voice call, everybody knows how much it is and what it's worth, but me getting my email versus my kids watching YouTube, it's a very different thing. But the impact of the network, in fact, the YouTube actually costs the network a whole lot more than just the email. So because there's kind of this mismatch in things, and because there's a limit to how much people will pay, or there's an unwillingness to go beyond what their basic flat rate budgeted price is, there are some other things that the operators can do, such as reducing the amount of bandwidth that they consume, but only during peak hours. They can charge more for different types of, allowing certain types of services and others. They can give discounts. If you agree not to use this type of service, then we'll charge you less. Things like that, where you're going to see a plethora of different rate plans and ways that service can be delivered, and all that, by and large, is delivered by policy management.
Are some of those alternatives that you talked about, alternatives to charging, more acceptable to users?
In general, yes. It depends. We actually just finished some consumer research on this back in October. The net of it is there's a significant portion of the market that would prefer to do things like have bandwidth controls, service controls, lower price services for the types of services that they can use, things like that, than just having the one flat fee, and if you go over a certain limit, then they get clobbered with overage fees. So a portion of the market probably likes what they have now, but there's a very large portion of the market that would prefer alternatives. So like a lot of things, as the service matures, you'll start to see a variety of different segmentation options come up, not one size fits all. And when that happens, doing things like policy management, the kinds of things that we do, become that much more important.
Now, one of the reasons it's becoming so important is just, as we said earlier, the number of applications and the types of applications and content that are being delivered. What impact does the evolution of wireless technologies from 2.3 to 3G and 3 to 4G have on it?
So from a consumer standpoint, the difference between 2G and 3G is the difference between sort of dial-up and broadband, real internet. And for that matter, we're actually part of an LTE deployment that's coming up in 2010. LTE really feels like real broadband. From a network operator standpoint, the thing is 2G no matter what happens, there's so little bandwidth that network demand and congestion, that sort of thing, is not really a problem. Basically, the only place that congestion becomes a problem is when you've got a 3G network. So from the network operator standpoint, it really goes from being a voice-centric or voice and a little bit of dial-up to being a real broadband operator. So the interesting thing is we've seen these mobile operators really have to adopt a lot of the things that the fixed line guys have been doing over the past years. All of a sudden in the last year or two, the mobile operators have adopted many of those same sorts of things. And that's why, from our standpoint, we've done a lot of work with fixed line operators previously, and now it's mobile operators that are starting to adopt this technology.
And so presumably, even though we're moving to WiMAX and LTE deployments, those challenges that have traditionally been there for even the wireless providers, they're still going to
not going away. I mean, for example, Verizon described that the LTE technology delivered maybe 2 to 5 megabits per second. Well, my cable modem does that, and you look at the fixed line operators, and they still have to do various different things for network management because the amount of bandwidth, in the history of the internet, you look at it, if you put bandwidth out there, people will find a way to do it. In particular, the particular critical problem for mobile operators is that mobile, by our calculations, costs somewhere in the order of 10 to 20 times as much as fixed line does in order to add capacity. So if it's just broadband, here's a pipe, fixed versus mobile, the mobile operators are going to have to do a lot of things to be able to compete with fixed line operators because their costs are that much higher.
Excellent. Good. I've been talking here with Randy Fuller from Camiant. Randy, thanks for joining me.
Absolutely.
Look forward to talking to you again.
Okay. Take care.
Thanks.